Why Geno Auriemma undersold how good Sarah Strong actually is. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone that's following the show, that's downloading it on their audio. This podcast has grown so much in the last few months, and it's because of fans like you who value great UConn content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn men's and women's basketball and some football. Truly the basketball capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage that you deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games, and we're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. So if you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, welcome to the program. Sarah Strong, she's a freshman in name only. She's incredible. And I will say this. Not a lot of freshmen where you expect them to continue to consistently have draw-dropping performances like she did against Louisville. 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, near flawless shooting, 8 of 10. The only time, and I've seen it in person, that Sarah shows her immaturity or youth is it's never on the court. It happened post-game with Geno and Paige. Happened post-game with Geno and Paige when I was there too. Paige made a reference that I'm sure all my older audience knows if they have kids or watched it when they were a kid, that she has those go-go gadget arms for uncanny ability to snag rebounds. And I honestly thought it came from the step through where she kind of did the little layup, that it did look like her arms kind of like reached out like way past what they should have. And, you know, apparently the room burst into laughter, except for Sarah, who was just like, you know, she didn't know what it was. And we've talked about this, but Bueckers grinning and shot back, you know, something to the fact of like, man, this new generation of kids or whatever. And she was like, kids, I'm an adult. Thank you very much. So, you know, it's kind of like an interesting back and forth. And it showed when I was there too, when Sarah answered questions really quickly and essentially left the stage right. And Geno asked her if she wanted to come back and field some more questions. To that, she gave like a sheepish, like, are you kidding? So Geno always loves to stir the pot, as I just mentioned. And he explained the reference to Sarah, and Sarah was not happy with Paige. But, you know, it's these lighthearted moments that you realize that she truly is a kid, but she's so far from it on the court. She is in 8 games. We've already compared her to Breanna Stewart. She's redefined what it means to be the best freshman at UConn, a program that's seen its fair share of phenoms. And Sarah leads the Huskies in nearly every major statistical category: field goal percentage, rebounds, steals, blocks, while ranking second in scoring behind Paige. Her advanced metrics, though, tell an even more compelling story. Remember how I asked if we can get some efficiency ratings similar to Evan Mia's essentially most impactful player? Well, here you go. Her PER rating, which is player efficiency rating, of 43.0, isn't just the best freshman on the team. She's statistically the best UConn freshman in her Hoop Stats era history. So I did find it, and I appreciate those who sent that to me. Her 0.34 win share per 40 minutes puts her ahead of even Breanna Stewart and Paige Bueckers during their debut seasons. Geno Auriemma never one to heap praise lightly. Didn't really mince words. Sarah brings a dimension that we probably haven't had in a post player ever. I don't know that anyone has had the offensive skill set that Sarah has since Stewie was here. That's a name you don't invoke lightly, and I didn't invoke it lightly yesterday on my show because Breanna Stewart's legacy at UConn is unmatched. 4 national championships, 4 Final Fours, 4 Final Four most outstanding player awards. Look, Sarah has a long way to go. We're 8 games in, and I know that I've said that yesterday, but they're just these accolades and the parallels between her and Stewie are impossible to ignore. Like Stewart, she's a hybrid player who defies positional labels. She can drive to the basket, drain threes, facilitate with precision, all while locking down the paint defensively. What makes Sarah Strong's early success even more impressive is her ability to handle immense pressure. We've talked about this. I actually would love to know what her resting heart rate is. If I was in the beat, I may have to ask Maggie or Emily if they can ask that even to her, like on not in front of people, so she doesn't like lose, feel like she's being asked a trick question or something silly. But like, I would love to know if that was ever tested. Like, what's her resting heart rate? Is it like 40? She's met every expectation. She's playing like an All-American right now. If Paige is the best player in the world in the women's game on the college side, she's second best. This is a quote from Paige. She doesn't think much when she plays. She just reacts. You can tell she's been watching basketball her whole life, that it's in her DNA. And it's true. Obviously, having parents that have played, been in the front office of major sports organizations, Auriemma echoed that. I remember Stewie had a November and December blowout where she looked like the best player in the country until she wasn't. Things happen when you're a freshman, he said. The question isn't if Strong will face adversity, it's how she'll respond when it comes. Given her composure so far, there's every reason to believe she'll rise to the occasion. Now, here's a great example. We have Notre Dame coming up. Could she falter there? And I've already said that I feel like they're going to lose that game because it's the first true road test. It's not a neutral site. It's not at home. It's not in the Barclays Center. It's like a true, they're coming at your neck. The Greensboro game was not a road game. That was a semi-home game. There was a lot of people that were rooting for the Huskies. So that statement holds true. We'll see if that first adversity comes now, or will it come against USC or another team that's tough, or maybe it never comes. We'll see. I have a feeling that I trust Geno and my instincts that it will come at some point. So while Sarah has a lot to prove, her trajectory is just skyrocketing to the top. She's not just good as a freshman. She's playing like the best player in the country, period. And as the Huskies prepare for Notre Dame, as we just said, I don't think you can argue that we're witnessing the start of another legendary career in stores. And Geno agrees. She's the complete package. There aren't a lot of things Sarah can't do. And as UConn continues its march towards a potential national title, their 12th in history, Sarah Strong isn't just a key piece of the puzzle. She might be, remember, though, I'm gonna use this phrase lightly. She might be the centerpiece. Whether she's dominating the paint or just messing around with her teammates in the press room, one thing is clear. Sarah is a star, and it's only beginning to rise. She's only a freshman in name, and I think at this point, we got to stop calling her freshman Sarah Strong because she's just in a whole class of her own. When we return, we're going to talk about our old friend, Caitlin Clark. She made some news. She was named Times Athlete of the Year. She offered some interesting unapologetic perspective on all things that are happening in her world and the world of college basketball that we cover and professional basketball. So it's adjacent. And I think it's interesting. So we're going to talk through that and then get back to more UConn topics like the legacy of UConn greats coming up after this. Get ready to tackle the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Yeah, Caitlin Clark, our old pals from Iowa, now of the Indiana Fever, fresh off being named Times Athlete of the Year. Did a expose in the article. You could read the whole thing, but I'm going to give you the high level. She offered up an introspective and unapologetic, honest perspective on her rise to stardom in basketball and the world in this recent interview with the publication. She thought, I'm gonna touch some of the topics. I'm not gonna take away some of them. She blends some humility. I think some of the humility and self-deprecating stuff can be misconstrued as arrogance. I think Caitlin Clark has every right to be arrogant. She's self-aware. I think she's a relentless athlete. She's the type of player that we really haven't seen at that level before. And I will say this: I know that there's been better players than her in the past. So before everyone jumps in my mentions and says, man, you don't watch women's basketball enough if you think that you haven't seen her. What I'm talking about is she reminds people of a female version of Steph Curry. I've said that from the jump. It's because of the depth of which she takes her shots, the logo threes, the uncanny ability to shoot off the dribble and still shoot it at a high clip. Did she struggle initially? Sure. But then she went on a tear and brought that team to the playoffs. She had some really standout moments this year, and I think that the comparisons sometimes between her and Paige are unwarranted. It kind of reminds me of when you compare people that play different positions. Just because they have the ball in their hands doesn't mean that they're the same. Like Caitlin can she make good passes? Absolutely. I think Paige is a much better player overall. I think she's a better passer. I think she's a better leader. I think neither of them have won a national championship, so you can't really say one is done with the other. But I will say that Caitlin is more of the I'm going to say this lightly because I don't want people to get mad at me. But you know what? I don't care. She's kind of like lowbrow comedy. Like I love a good joke that is quote unquote low class because it makes you laugh. It doesn't make you think that much. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I say that with absolutely no ounce of elitism or anything that comes with it. I feel like Paige is a basketball ball knower's cup of tea because of how she handles pressure, how she is able to hit people in stride, hit her shooters in the pocket of their shots so they have a better opportunity to make their shots. She handles adversity a little bit better. I think Caitlin's demeanor at times is off-putting in terms of how she goes about her business on the court. On the flip side of that, do I feel like she was targeted this year by players that are jealous because of all the attention she gets? Absolutely. She had some quotes where she openly reflects on her privilege as a white player. I'm only repeating this. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but this is a quote from her. She said, "I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege." And that comment to me is, commendable in the acknowledgement of historical contributions of a majority black sport where they've built the league's foundation. But at the same time, it also recognizes that she worked for everything she had because she wasn't given her ability. It's, one thing about sports is it's a meritocracy. I always say this joking around. The fastest way to know if someone is lying to you about how good they are at a sport is just play against them. Challenge Caitlin Clark to a shooting contest and find out how quickly you lose or how quickly you're going to be embarrassed. Same thing. I joke around when people say, "Well, I'm a good golfer." It's like, okay, well, let's go play. And then you find that they're not so good because you actually have to do it on the court. Talking about it and competing and doing those things matter the most. And I think Caitlin has brought a lot of eyeballs to women's basketball, which is a good thing. It's a thing that people in Connecticut should celebrate and not hate on her for it. The people that you should hate on are the fans that make it their identity that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball player. And there are fans of this from either side. I always take Red Sox, Yankees, right? I love the Yankees. I'm unapologetic about that. But I'm not the guy who's just like 27 championships. Like, that's just stupid. I think you're a moron if you do that. And the same thing with the Red Sox. Oh, what have you guys won since 2001? All that stuff. It's like more than you probably since we've been alive. So it's kind of like the quote. I love I could say this in a sports perspective. I love the team. I hate the fans. Right. So not a big fan of Caitlin Clark fans that jump in people's mentions. Like the one guy that was wearing a Caitlin Clark jersey got into a fight at the Greensboro Coliseum. It's like, I mean, what are we doing here, guys? But I appreciated the interview. She, she posed a thought-provoking question. Do you think people should have shown up the next day and be like, hey, Tyrese Halliburton, did you poach Steph Curry in the eye on purpose? And those aren't questions that you get in the NBA. And I think she was talking about the double standard of when they go after the players that are targeting her. I think sometimes those are fair questions, but I feel like she was treated in a different way. Like, remember the guy from, I think he's from the Indy Star. Can't think of his name off the top of the head, like how weird he was with her at the beginning. And then he got suspended for the year because he made like a gesture to her that is, he would never have done if, let's say, it's me who's up there talking about, playing for the Pacers. So the way men and women cover her is odd. Ultimately, I think her play is what people want to see. They don't really care about her ability to be the Times Athlete of the Year, which I think is a very apropos award for her, because she brought more eyeballs this year to the WNBA than there has in years. And before then, the UConn Iowa game was the most watched college basketball game in the history of the sport. So she's doing something right, guys. So I don't think we're necessarily celebrating Caitlin Clark, but we're celebrating that women's college basketball is in the forefront, and women's basketball in general, because the product is there, guys. I find myself watching the women's game and being just as into it as I was when I was a kid, when it was almost like a curiosity because it wasn't as mainstream. And I'm excited about having my daughter grow up in a world where she can have the Paige Bueckers of the world, the Sarah Strongs of the world to look up to as professional athletes. Now she's barely 1 year old, but you get the idea. I think she's captivating the sport for a reason, and I think Paige is going to be right behind her, and soon following, and maybe a slew of UConn players like Sarah and others that will continue to follow. And as we know, the WNBA with Fee and Breanna dominating the finals, it's not just about Caitlin; it's about tons and tons of good WNBA players that have come from UConn and other colleges most recently. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go back to Sarah and her remarkable start and how it compares to the legacy of other UConn freshman greats coming up after this. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off the promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. And the gifting experts at Omaha Steak have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift thoughtfully in curated packages featuring gourmet favorites from legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com. $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto here. All right, Sarah's been remarkable. Her start to her career has just been off the charts. I know we're beating a dead horse here, but the Phenom was named both Big East Player of the Week and Freshman of the Week. And it'd be shocked that it's only happened 2 other times. And if you know that, it's because you're a UConn nerd like me. And the only other 2 UConn players that have managed to win both freshman and player of the week in the Big East for UConn have been, and I'll give you the dates too. Maya Moore on May 4th, 2008. No shock there. But this one was another one. Christyn Williams, not that it shocked me, but, for all the people that have been freshmen and really good players at UConn, Breanna being one, right? She earned the dual honor on December 3rd, 2018, most recently during UConn's time in the AAC. Dark days. To say Strong is a rarefied air would be an understatement. So, Strong, last week, across 2 games, 21.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.5 steals, while shooting 77.3% from the field, 70% from 3. You heard me right. 70% from 3. Against Holy Cross, she had a personal best with 22 points on 9 of 12 shooting, including 4 of 5 from behind the arc. Followed that up with a dominant 21.8 rebound performance in UConn's blowout win over then-ranked 22nd Louisville. These weren't just good games. They were dominant games. And maybe a preview of where she's headed. UConn coach Geno Auriemma summed it up perfectly again, saying, as I said earlier, Sarah brings a dimension to our team that we haven't had in a long time, maybe ever. And we're talking, she's not just one of the best freshmen. We're talking about one of the most impactful players in the country. Crazy. When you look at the names Sarah Strong is now associated with, Maya Moore, Christyn Williams, you realize how bright their future can be. Moore, one of the greatest to ever play in the game, went on to win 4 national titles at UConn, 2 WNBA championships, and an MVP award. Williams, while still establishing herself in the professional ranks, made a name for herself as a dominant scorer and a critical piece of UConn's success during her college years. Sarah's trajectory has the potential to follow a similar path of Moore. And what sets her apart is now how seamlessly she's been able to step into a leadership role as a freshman, which, albeit a quiet one, because she's not exactly out there barking orders, but she does by filling all the gaps. She's creating her own space on a team that already has established stars like Paige and AZ. Sarah leads UConn in rebounding, steals, blocks, ranks second in scoring. As we talked about her advanced metrics, they're through the roof. But I really do feel like Sarah Strong is the future of women's college basketball as a whole. We just talked about Caitlin Clark pulling in record viewership for the college game and drawing the same viewership and excitement for the W. The sport is entering a new golden era, and Clark's electrifying play, because when you watch her play, you literally say, what just happened, multiple times in a game. She is a absolute force on the basketball court. And having Paige as her running mate has also made it even more fun and enhance it. But she's heading to the pros. The WNBA is poised for a massive influx of talent and attention, but Sarah's going to stay back at UConn, God willing, right? And we're going to have her for multiple years. But only 8 games into her college career, I can't but keep gushing over her because of what she provides in terms of her versatility. A mixture of Breanna, Stewart, and Maya Moore. The potential is incredible to leave an indelible mark on this game. We got Notre Dame on Thursday. Hannah Hidalgo and folks. I wonder, again, if this is the moment where we see a little adversity for Sarah. I'm not counting on it. They still may lose this game because it's a true road game. But, God, I just don't see anything in Sarah's game other than maybe having an off night shooting that's going to prevent her from being impactful. So that's the biggest thing is she doesn't have to score to impact the game. She doesn't have to get 20 assists to impact the game. She is a difference maker in the respect that people go into the lane and they see her and it's like they think twice about maybe challenging her because they're going to get their shot blocked. Or she redirects where someone is going, so it leads to a deflection for KK or for Ashlyn or someone like that. She's leading in an entirely different way. She's not a point guard. She's a hybrid post player. So I'm so excited about it for Thursday's game and this week in UConn Nation, both on the women's and men's side. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day. Make sure you tune in to our show daily for the UConn men's and women's program. You can always tell which is which by the rundown every day. So if you jump on, you're like, oh man, I only hang out with the men, or I only hang out with the women. Your show is usually coming up next. Until then, go Huskies.